The Despair and Hope banner not only perfectly describes the gacha summoning experience, but it also brings us 4 new heroes from Path of Radiance. Today we'll be talking about Ilyana, Gatrie, Shinon, and Jill. We have a couple of popular characters here, and boy are they pretty darn good. We'll be looking at everyone's stats, skills, and general build ideas and playstyles. Timestamps will be in the description. First off, Ilyana is making her return, but this time as a regular new unit. She will be the 4-star focus unit for this banner, and you can get her at 4-star and 5-star rarity. Getting her at 4 stars will not reset your pity rate, and we are back to the normal 1-time 40 summon spark mechanic. Instead of an armored mage, Ilyana would just be a regular blue infantry mage, and as a reminder for the rest of the banner, we are in generation 5 BST for everyone, so expect higher base stat totals than what we're normally used to. For her stats, Ilyana has 39 HP, 38 attack, 32 speed, 17 defense, and 40 resistance. Pretty high base attack for a mage, and 40 res is only one behind the highest in the game, so Ilyana will be able to duel her fellow mages very well. She also has a res super boon, so you can have fun with that. Her defense is definitely a bit low, although nothing super surprising for a generic mage character. Her 32 base speed isn't blazing fast, but with a speed boon, it's definitely salvageable. As the 4-star focus unit, Ilyana will get demoted into the 3 to 4-star pool after this banner ends, so she's definitely not a bad merge project. You can definitely make do with her high attack and res, or perhaps you can invest in her speed stat as well. For old skills, she will come with Iceberg, which will deal 20 damage off of her 40 res. Ilyana also brings 2 decent skills into the 3 to 4-star pool. Mirror Strike 2 grants +4 attack and res on initiations, and Res Ploy applies long range debuffs if the user has higher res than the enemy in a line. A lot of mages love Res Ploy to deal out more damage, so it's nice to see it on another low rarity character. For her new skill, Ilyana brings the Blue Fox Tome. This is a 12 might inheritable tome that inflicts -4 debuffs to all stats on the enemy if you initiate combat. The Fox Tomes are player phase weapons that debuff all 4 stats, so it's similar to receiving buffs to each stat during combat. We do not have many inheritable tomes for offensive usage outside of the usual blade tome, so Ilyana bringing the Blue Fox Tome into the 3 to 4-star pool with her is really nice. These aren't really super busted weapons, but they are a very good alternative to needing to super buff up your blade tome mage. So Ilyana definitely has her own niche coming into the low rarity summoning pool. She is a better Mei in terms of stats, including 10 more res, and no other 3-star blue mage is gonna come close to her for the base res. Since she does have the Blue Fox Tome, Ilyana can run a standard desperation build. If you refine the Fox Tome for 2 extra speed, and with its -4 speed debuff, it's like having +6 speed from the weapon alone, and if you want to merge Ilyana up, you can fish around for a plus speed boon. That would already be 9 extra speed before we include A skills or sacred seals, so yeah, I do think Ilyana can make a fine budget offensive mage. If she procs Iceberg, that will give you a huge burst of damage, and with 40 base res, it's super easy to lay down ploy debuffs. You can go with Swift Sparrow or Brazen Attack and Speed if you run the Fury plus Desperation combo, but you can also just run double ploy debuffs if you so wish. There are some other offensive skills you can run like Low Speed and Res or Mirror Impact, but Ilyana will be pretty susceptible to any physical damage or a good dragon, so she does need to be careful. Of course, with her high base attack, she can also just use the Blade Tome and nuke stuff in one shot. She could also build more supportive with multiple Sabotage or ploy debuffs, but that's up to you. Some other skill choices could include Heavy Blade, Times Pulse, or Special Sparrow for your special cooldown needs. Mystic Boost might be okay to stall out dragons with her high res, but Ilyana won't have a dragon effect in this weapon like Julia. Overall, while not a do-it-all type unit, Ilyana is a great addition to the 3 to 4-star pool. She brings some great skills for foddering, and she can play to her high attack or res stats fairly well. Next we have Gatrie, who is the Grill Mercenary's main armored tank. He is a lance armor unit in Fae, and unfortunately he comes right after Brave Hector's new Reign of Terror thanks to his Refine. Still, Gatrie has some great traits, so don't count him out yet. For stats, Gatrie has 47 HP, 42 attack, 17 speed, 44 defense, and 35 resistance. 44 defense tops Brave Edelgard's previous highest base defense in the game, but because she has a defense super boon, they will technically still tie. Speaking of which, Gatrie is pretty similar to Brave 80 stat-wise. He is super slow, but he has great base attack and amazing defense and res stats. He will take a lot of hits, but the man can definitely take them. For old skills, Gatrie has Moonbill, which is always somewhat useful. He also has Fortress Defense and res 3, so that is definitely a nice highlight for foddering purposes. Gatrie actually has a couple of good new skills, including the Spirited Spear Plus. This 14 might inheritable lance is the lance equivalent to the Huge Fan Plus. If bonus is active on unit, grants +4 attack and defense, and special cooldown charge +1 per foe's attack during combat. So you need to have a field buff or status effect active, and you get a nice stat boost. More importantly though, you get special cooldown charges when the enemy hits you, and since Gatrie is going to get hit often, that means more special opportunities. Overall, I think most players enjoyed the Huge Fan Axe, so Spirited Spear should be another fun weapon for our lance units. Next, Gatrie has a new armor only skill, Crafty Fighter 3. If unit's HP is above 25% and if foe initiates combat, unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack and inflicts special cooldown charge -1 on foe per attack. So as you can tell by the purple color, Crafty Fighter is going to be an alternative to Vengeful Fighter. It actually has a bigger quick riposte HP threshold, and instead of granting special cooldown for the user, it inflicts guard on the enemy. So you can get quick riposte and you deny the enemy from charging their special. Also important to note that the guard effect works on all attacks, whereas Vengeful Fighter only gives you special cooldown on your own attacks. Now since Crafty Fighter is giving us guard, it sure works nicely with the Spirited Spear that grants cooldown reduction. You can also pair with a Breath A skill for a nice enemy phase build. Now, I know it's really tough to beat Brave Hector, but for an armor unit with no unique weapon, Gatrie does his best. He has crazy high defense, and with Fortress Defense and Res 3, he's gonna have 50 visible defense. His Res also isn't low at all, so yeah, even if Gatrie takes 2 attacks, he is gonna be one tough unit. Thanks to Crafty Fighter, he also has guard, which is really good for this kind of playstyle, and with Spirited Spear, Gatrie can retaliate with Moonbow after taking 1 attack, which means he can proc it twice in 1 round. Assuming he gets hit, he counters with Moonbow, then he gets hit again, which gives another Moonbow. Suffice to say, his base kit works very nicely together, so it's fine to keep, but obviously we have a ton of great armor builds. You can go with Distant Counter and any of the usual Fighter B skills like Specialist Fighter or Bold Fighter, or even Wary Fighter. If you like Crafty Fighter, you can pair with a Breath A skill for tons of special cooldown, but I would then change out Gatrie's weapon for something like a Barrier Lance or the good old Slang Lance. Some major weaknesses of this base kit is that Gatrie is much weaker on the player phase since he gets no guard and no follow-ups. If you can obtain it, this type of enemy phase build would love the dual threatens because they inflict a big stat advantages if you try to bait them to you. Obviously don't run threatened skills with Armor March, but you can use the new seal for team mobility. All in all, Gatrie is a fine armor unit. Brave Hector has kind of planted his flag down for the time being, but Gatrie's still good, and it's hard to argue with the ridiculous amount of base stats he has. Next up is Shinon, who is pals with Gatrie and is the Grell's Mercenary's sniper ace. He is also Rolf's teacher and is quite the jerk to a lot of people, including Ike. This prickly ponytailed archer is here to avenge a certain pineapple head, and he is definitely a very cool unit. Shinon will be a colorless infantry archer with 40 HP, 38 attack, 42 speed, 27 defense, and 24 resistance. He has unquestionably the best offensive spread out of any archer, and I would say 30 attack, 42 speed is probably the best in the whole game. Shinon also has a speed super boon and a res super boon, which he can actually make use of. His defenses aren't insane, but they are in an okay spot, and that's going to be key for the rest of his kit. Speaking of which, for old skills, Shinon has attack and defense solo 4, low attack and speed 3, and times pulse 3. These are 3 absolutely amazing skills on hand, and Shinon uses all of them very effectively.
It's too late for nerves, Rolf. If you're not up to it, just leave it to the master, eh? Watch and learn. One clean motion. No hesitation.
So dull.
By you?
If you guys watched my last video, I talked about Takumi, who is the OG close counter archer that dominated the early days of Fae. I also talked about how he had no weapons with close counter on its base effect, only a couple of refines. Well, Shinon is here to make me look like a fool because the double bow is what Takumi wished he had. This 14-might bow accelerates special trigger, and if Shinon is not adjacent to an ally, he gets +5 to all stats, and he can counterattack regardless of foe's range. My goodness, what are the chances that literally one day after talking about Takumi, we get Takumi 2.0? While double bow isn't a true close counter weapon, Shinon just needs to be alone, which is an easy condition to fulfill, and unlike poor Fujin Yumi, the double bow excites specials and gives a ton of bonus stats on top. You saw that Shinon has a solo skill and a low attack and speed, so this guy is really trying to make the close counter playstyle work. Not only will he be great on offense, but if you come at Shinon in melee range, he can still fight back. To make things even crazier, Shinon comes with a new special called Deadeye. It's a 3 cooldown special that doubles damage dealt and disables non-special skills that reduce damage by X%. The important thing to know is that Deadeye is inheritable by any archer. While the damage reduction neutralization part is very enticing, especially these days, you should know the limitations of this special. The wording may be different, but Deadeye is basically part of the Glimmer and Asher skill line, and it's right in between. Glimmer is on a 2 cooldown but boosts damage by 50%, which is 1.5 times damage total. Astra is a 4 cooldown special that boosts damage by 150%, which is 2.5 times damage total. Deadeye is going to be a 3 cooldown special, and double damage is the same as boosting damage by 100%, which is 2 times total. As you can see, Deadeye isn't a super overpowering new special like Black Luna, but it can bypass percent base damage reduction skills like Close Call or Brave X Irvin, and these have been all the rage this year. However, Deadeye is going to calculate off of base damage done, so you must hit hard enough, otherwise this special can do very little for you. For example, if you deal 0 base damage, Deadeye will add 0 damage. If you had dealt 0 base damage but you had Luna instead, there's at least a chance for you to deal some positive damage. Like with Glimmer and Astra, Deadeye is definitely best if you want to close out a fight in one single shot. If you can deal 30 base damage, that would translate into 60 total damage with Deadeye. It also does not scale off of true damage, so you can't trust the damage preview window if you have true damage skills going. There is definitely a certain sweet spot for these types of specials, although I think it's a 500 SP special, so in Arena, you will 100% see it on other archers anyway. Now with his insane base kit and stellar stats, Shinon is good to go out of the box. He just needs to keep some space between himself and his allies, and he gets the full benefits out of all of his skills. If you take double bow, attack and defense solo 4 and low attack and speed 3, that's like getting plus 12 attack, plus 8 speed, plus 15 defense, and plus 8 resistance. Shinon won't be drain tanking like Brave Claude, but the guy will certainly put up a good fight in a 1v1 duel. Also, thanks to Time's Pulse and Double Bow's faster specials, he's going to have Deadeye on a 1 cooldown every player phase. This means Shinon can tank 1 hit on the enemy phase, and he's going to retaliate with a fully charged Deadeye. For Sacred Seals, we have our good friend the Speed and Res Solo Sacred Seal, and while I don't know if Shinon needs even more speed, the 6 extra res is certainly nice to have. Some alternatives could be Attack Smoke or a Brazen Scale for some extra insurance when Shinon takes a bit of damage. Now if you want to fully embrace the Takumi vibes, you could run Vantage with Defense Smoke, perhaps if you're running an AoE damage team comp. Special Spire would also be nice since Deadeye is on a 2 cooldown thanks to Double Bow, so Shinon can have it charged every fight, and that would bypass any guard abilities. If you're going to do that, you don't need Time's Pulse anymore, and Shinon can take a Rouse buff for himself since he'll be all alone anyway. Overall, Shinon is an amazing archer just for general gameplay. All of his bonus stats activate on both phases, and he has tons of damage and speed, so he's definitely going to be an offensive threat too. He basically remedies a lot of the problems normal close counter Takumi had with just a ton more in combat power. Last but not least is Jill. A lot of people have been waiting for her, and even though George memed his way in first, Jill finally arrives. She's going to be an axe flyer with 40 HP, 39 attack, 40 speed, 36 defense, and 17 resistance. Naturally low res as a Wyvern Rider, but good lord, 39 attack and 40 speed is fantastic. Jill is basically right up there with Hell in terms of stats, but thanks to the new Gen 5 BST, she gets a little bit more defense on top. She also has attack and speed super boons, so pick your poison, both are not going to disappoint. For old skills, Joe has Moonbow, attack and speed push 4, and chill attack and speed 2. They pretty much took Brave Claude's setup and said, hey, that's a nice base kit. Joe is going to get her own axe, the Talrigan axe, and boy, this is quite the weapon. It accelerates specials, which is always good, and if Joe initiates combat or if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she gets plus 6 attack and speed during combat. Additionally, when Joe initiates, she gets to make a follow-up attack before folk can counterattack. Basically, Jill has permanent desperation and she is getting plus 6 attack and speed too. Unlike Bernadetta or Brave Lysithea, Jill doesn't need to mess with HP thresholds. She literally has these bonuses all the time on the player phase. Considering she has incredible base attack and speed, adding an axe that accelerates specials, has Swift Sparrow 3 basically, and permanent desperation just seems kinda nutty. Jill is going to be slightly held back because she can't run no follow-up or flashing blade, but you never know when a new flyer B skill could appear. We did just get Dive Bomb, which Jill could have used, but Talrigan Axe is literally better than Dive Bomb and Desperation combined. This is such a simple weapon to use, and she can get the attack and speed boost on enemy phase 2 if need be. For a new C skill, Joe brings Speed and Defense Rain 3, inflict -4 speed and defense on foes within 2 spaces during combat. The rain skills are for flyers only, but boy are they good C skills if a unit just wants better personal performance. They can help nearby allies too if you're close enough, but the main usage will be for the user. Naturally, the speed and defense variant is great for a fast physical damage flyer like Jill, and since she can avoid counterattacks, she doesn't need attack debuffs like Claude. This would be a great C skill for offensive flyers like Elincia, the White Wings, or perhaps a Fire Sweep user. For Jill specifically, combining it with her axe, that is already like plus 10 attack and speed. So Jill is actually a very simple player phase unit. She can 2-tap from 100% HP, and she is only really going to be stopped by follow prevention skills like Wary Fighter. If you want to stop her via a speed battle with Talrigan Axe, attack and speed push 4, and speed and defense Rhine, Jill is initiating with 68 attack and 53 speed. Plus, she inflicts -4 speed and defense debuffs, so that's more like 72 attack and 57 speed. If you don't stop her follow-up, she hits twice in a row and procs Moonbow, so she almost acts like a fire sweep user, assuming she kills her target. However, because Jill has faster specials, she can also run Gale Force with Heavy Blade, and 2 attacks will get Gale Force rolling. To be honest, she might have too much attack if you attack a ranged unit, so keep that in mind. Now you can definitely replace her A skill and B skills. While attack and speed push 4 is fine for shorter fights, it will eventually deactivate itself, so Jill may instead want Swift Sparrow or attack and speed solo. Her B skill is very flexible since you don't need to run the chill skill. Jill can use a flyer mobility skill like Flyer Formation, but if you want to have a chance at bypassing wary fighter type skills, you could use a breaker skill, for example Axe Breaker or Lance Breaker, since Brave Hector can stop a follow-up. Jill could also run Guard Bearing to survive a stray mage attack, or maybe an arrow too. For the most part, Jill is an offensive beast with tons of attack and speed, and Desperation with no HP condition. Ideally, you don't want to let her attack you first if you face her, but she can be stopped with a follow-up prevention skill. Very much a fantastic axe flyer still. That's going to be it for this video. This banner actually has a lot of good units and good skills. Deadeye being inheritable is certainly something, and I would expect Mr. Legendary Crom to have it a lot. If I gave it to an archer on my defense team, I would 100% try to pre-charge it with Infantry Pulse or Quicken Pulse. It's not going to majorly dent high defense tanks, but against anything else, you probably have a good chance for a one-shot. If you like the tank with close call type skills, then you might want to be careful. Anywho, I'm looking forward to this banner, and I'm probably going to try and get Shinon myself. Let me know what you think about this banner in the comments, and we will be back tomorrow to talk about Patrine. She's the next Grand Hero battle unit, and she's definitely offering some unique traits, so that should be fun to talk about. I'll see you guys in the next video.